Hi everyone, welcome to the Mental Brew Podcast, Conversations on High Performance. This is episode 2, and today we have Jamie Geraghty. Jamie, thanks for coming on.
No worries, Dennis. Good to chat to you.
I suppose, Jamie, we start off the podcast in a similar way with one question. Why do you do what you do?
Don't know. Look, I got involved in my sports basically through laziness. I was running a fitness class and didn't want to set up equipment, and calisthenics kept popping up, and I was just kind of like, what is this? And then once I started looking into it, I was like, that looks cool, and then done one session in it myself, and then that was it. And I was like, I was hooked. Wanted to do as much of it as I could, 24/7. And I suppose I started trying to find a place that did do it. Like, I was just looking for somewhere to train and couldn't find anywhere. So went from that to just like, right, I'll do it myself. And I suppose in terms of kind of what you're looking to get out of it with the podcast and that, like, the idea, as opposed to thinking, oh shit, there's nowhere to go. It was like, right, there's an opportunity, because if I like it, other people will definitely like it. To me, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So of course people were gonna like it, but it was a niche opportunity, I suppose, at the time.
And just kind of going back to that element of, look, you found something you like. There wasn't anyone else doing it, so you essentially spotted a gap in the market. When or how long did it take from that idea to kind of go, yeah, I see a spot here, to actually opening the doors of the gym?
So I was training for a while, and I had the idea in the back of my head, and then I went for a mad enough kind of trick, a push-up kind of trick, and I broke my toe. So that ruled me out for about 12 weeks from working.
Yeah.
But instead of kind of moaning about, I was like, right, here's my chance, like, and went and done all my, the local enterprise office, start your own business courses, all that kind of crack. And then I just never went back, because like, yeah, I'm doing it. And at that point, no one could have changed my mind, because I never wanted what I'd done for a living to just be a job.
Yeah.
I've always wanted it to mean something to me. And this was, at the time, I felt I'd found it.
Yeah.
So once I got into it and I'd done all that, and I was like, yeah, I'm going for it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I've been in that situation as well, where you're in the career that, look, it's grand, like, but it's a job. It's not something that you're maybe ecstatically happy doing. And when you look at your life now as a business owner compared to as maybe an employee, what would you see the main differences as? Like, what can you experience maybe a little bit more of, do you think?
So I think obviously all your decisions, your risk reward, your what would you say? Like, you're always on.
Yeah.
You're never really switched off. Like, if I go away, I'm still answering phone calls. But it's something you enjoy doing. So like, I'll work, say, essentially 12, 13 hours a day, but in comparison to someone who hates what they do, the thoughts of a 12, 13 hour day would stress them out, and I could imagine being sick all the time or really high stress levels.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's like, I just love it. So, I wouldn't change that. I know people that are in more comfortable situations, but probably just, it's 9 to 5, and then they're wanting to get the fuck out of there. And
yeah,
I just never wanted that.
Yeah. And can I bring you back to, so you've done your courses, you've maybe found your premises, you've kind of costed everything to kit out the gym. So the gym's been kitted out. And was there ever that kind of moment where you're kind of looking around going, oh shit, here, I've put X amount of money in here. Like, I need kids coming in the door to start paying this back?
So we set up a second facility, just as an example for you. So we set up a second facility, and we were open 2 months, and then COVID happened.
Oh, lovely.
And the guy that was renting it to us basically said he had to let it go to like a Romanian, I don't know, shipping company or something, because we had half of the place, and the other half was supposed to be like this after school sports facility, and that's why he was only looking to sublet it. And we were like, oh, that'd be perfect opportunity here. So then we had a massive loan to pay back and a gym's worth of equipment just sitting in a container. So that happened during COVID. So yeah, I've had those moments.
And what do you do then so even using that example as COVID, you get that phone call from your man, come here, we've no space for you. You realise you've a container full of equipment. I suppose, what do you do, or what did you do yourself, or what did you adopt to maybe just try and, I suppose, switch off even for that half an hour, where obviously it's in a worry. It's I wouldn't say an issue, but it's a problem that needs to be solved. How did you try and switch off or how do you switch off in those kind of difficult periods to, I suppose, bring yourself down to kind of regulate yourself a bit?
I don't know, man. I'd say anyone else that's self-employed would kind of be the same in that they probably don't.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I just, like, all my friends or whoever is involved in the club with me, like, it's just known about me, like, you know, like, the majority of my messages from people to people are calisthenics related.
I can vouch for that as well for me in college.
Like, a lot of the time my conversations are about that, something that stimulates me, and like if I'm around people where I feel like, oh, like it's wasting my time, then I just don't want to be there. And like, I'm not saying that that's healthy or that that's a good thing. You know, you should be able to kind of leave it at the door. Now, I can leave it at the door when I'm with my girlfriend, but like, even she would tell you, like, a lot of my conversations with her, I'm lucky that she's interested in the sport as well, because I think otherwise she would have choked me out by now.
And we'll say, as a business owner, you know, you've kind of described it, the hours roughly you might work is 12, 13-hour days. But I suppose, what habits or routines have you developed that help you perform as a business owner? We're kind of going into the performance area now, but as a business owner, what kind of habits would you have to help you perform to your max?
So I think, first of all, I consider myself a sports person with a business, not a business person in sport. So I kind of get the people around me, hopefully, that can do the things that I'm not great at. So I suppose you're very lucky, and that obviously doesn't happen at the start, but in terms of trying to get people around you that have strengths that are my weaknesses, you know, like, we've a guy Owen, and like, in terms of admin, he's amazing, whereas I'm very, like, scattered at times. But I think, you know, yourself, if you're self-employed, you could be juggling 50 things and you might remember 47, but people only judge you on the 3 that you forgot, you know. So the people that you didn't text back because you've already been working and it's 9:30 that night, and they're texting you then, and you've already done a 12-hour day, whatever. And sometimes you can only get judged on what you forget, not what you remember, you know.
And obviously now we know each other through SETU Waterford. We're both doing the Masters in Sports and Exercise Psychology. I suppose we're both kind of self-employed going into it. We knew what we wanted from it. And obviously enough now, you would say you're an athlete with a gym, as you just said. How do you think you're going to manage being an athlete, a gym owner, and then maybe a kind of a sports psychology consultant or a performance coach, whatever your title may be?
I'm not. But my plan, I suppose, is that, like, I'm more interested in the sports side, I suppose, you know. So I'm not interested in talking to someone about how many sets and reps they need to do, or, you know, periodization. Like, yes, I understand why it's relevant, but I'm more interested in looking at the environment we're creating as a club, because I can't be at every class. So it's looking at, okay, what environment are we creating? What's the interactions looking like between the coach and the athlete? What are those conversations looking like? What is the relationship they're building looking like? And I think that's where I'm stronger. So I'm much more interested in developing that, because it's, if we organize team meetings, say, between the coaches, that's where my conversations go. It's never really around, you know, oh, like, what's their strength looking like this week, or are they catching that routine? It's it's always revolved around the relationship, because I think if the relationships are built, then they'll develop in the sport anyway. It's only the environment you're creating, all that other stuff will come after. So I suppose, as you say, if you're talking about me being in 3 different areas, I think you're essentially fusing them together, you know. Psychology's everywhere, so
yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, I suppose I'd be working across sport, business, and kind of going and doing stuff in schools like well-being and stuff. And I had just a client myself recently, which was a youth club. A client coming up now in 2 weeks' time, which is an organisation, and both of the needs are the exact same. And you know, obviously psychology and the background we have can kind of help with that massively. And just going back to, I suppose, the brand of your business, I have it written down here, Bar Monkey Calisthenics. So going back to that, right?
How many attempts did it take you to get that? Were you practicing that off air, right?
Yeah, I practicing it a couple of times now, not going to lie. not going to lie. But just say you bring in a new coach, and the coach might be fantastic at delivering a class, whatever else. But in terms of kind of maybe the environment that they create isn't what you want, you know, within your club. I suppose, how do you kind of manage that? Obviously, you probably get feedback from parents maybe, or even students themselves, but obviously enough there's a brand there that's yours, that you want to build. There's obviously kind of a cultural piece there, the culture you want to foster within your staff and within your students. I suppose, so long-winded question, but how do you make sure that I suppose, the staff and your coaches kind of have the same outlook as you?
So like, being honest, that hasn't worked when I've taken someone without, and again, not always their fault. Sometimes like you can just expect someone, and this would be psychology based, so us just expecting people to know what you want without informing them.
Yeah.
So a lot of people go into a job, don't know what the expectancies are, they aren't told. So you need to kind of lower that as soon as possible. And again, it's just explaining it to them so that they can relax in the job, you know, and build them relationships. Whereas if they're anxious, that's going to be portrayed then when they're working with any athletes. But for me, it's more about how can they interact with the group, how can they interact with the kids, how can they interact with athletes. So my brother helps us out, and I've said this loads of times, like when we're delivering our coaching courses, you know, what's more important, the environment you create or the physical skills you can develop? Because we've had technical coaches come in before, but can't interact with the group. And my brother is the exact opposite, is amazing at interacting with people, but isn't mad into the sport.
Yeah, okay.
But I'd say about 70% of the kids we have, if not higher, are only there because of him.
Okay, yeah.
You know, and that's just because you can have the crack with them. Yes, I can teach them the technical things, but what about the child sitting in the corner who won't necessarily get up or is a bit nervous to have a go? And that's when you need someone who can build a relationship.
Brilliant. And obviously now you were just at the World Championships, which we'll come to in a sec, but just when we talk about high performance and we're talking about calisthenics and people coming into your gym, what is high performance for you? Is it getting the, you know, X amount of people on an Irish team or winning awards or competitions, or is there something kind of more important to you than that?
Yeah, so I suppose at this stage, our club, like the name or whatever, Bar Monkey, the kids or whoever's involved don't even really know they're doing a sport. They just know Bar Monkey, and Bar Monkey means different things to different people. But like, and that's a great sign that it's grown. You know, some kids might not even know who I am. But the idea is that there's a space where they feel kind of like they found somewhere they belong, that there's a group of people that they're comfortable to be around. When I was competing, high performance was just being around 7-8 people that when you walked into the room, the energy was good.
Yeah.
Because if that was good, like there was days where I was like, I couldn't be arsed training today, but then 3 or 4 lads would walk into the room and my whole energy would change.
Yeah.
So even though my sport's an individual sport, I'm very much aware that like I wouldn't have done anything if I didn't have people around me. So it's just a case of, I think, improving that with the next generation of kids we have coming through.
And obviously now you're kind of dealing with kids. What age would they range from, the kids you're kind of dealing with?
So we have them from 4 all the way up to adulthood. So you've every age.
Huge spectrum there. So like, what kind of difficulties would you have seen maybe with some of the kids? Like, are they coming in with maybe difficult backgrounds, difficult circumstances? Like, what I see myself is really poor social skills now because everything's on the phone. Like, are you kind of seeing these things yourself? Is it again part of the kind of, I suppose, the holistic approach you're taking to, look, we want to bring them in, we want to kind of give them that support, we want to, I suppose, help them kind of develop as a person?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, is that like the developing as a person. So we have, like, say, our competition group, so like the lads who are trying for competitions, but like they have to help us set everything up, they have to take everything down, they have to come to other events and do demonstrations, they have to help out with coaching. But that's not like us trying to get free labor out of them, that's trying to like instill good values in them. And I think because it it's that thing of like sweeping the sheds the year with the All Blacks and all that. Like, we're just trying to instill the same thing and make sure that they grow up with good values. So there's like, obviously, there will be plenty of discipline issues, I'm sure, in every sport. But I think in general, you're just trying to create the right environment around them, and deal with those things as they arise. I think a lot of the time it's the individual is usually not the problem. It's usually everything that's around them that's causing their issue. So it's trying to get them comfortable enough with you to find out that piece and not just moan at them for their behaviour, but find out the why of that behaviour.
I just got a flashback to a story you told me. So you would have gone out to youth outreaches and done your calisthenics, kind of demonstrating to them. And I just got a flashback to the story you told me, right? But I suppose just to really stress that, it might be a lot easier to bring them into your gym. But the fact you're still going out though to different organizations, different buildings, schools or whatever else, to kind of, I suppose, showcase your sport, showcase your own skill, and showcase your gym. I suppose the challenges with that are a little different. So you might get a little bit of a heckling, would you?
Yeah, do you want me to tell the heckle?
Go on, do.
So I suppose, so we were in a youth centre and had the bar set up, and I was in chatting to the manager, and next thing, all the young lads, about 14, 15, start coming in. So I walked out and they're in a little half circle and pull-up bars set up, and usually I'd give a little demonstration. So I've walked towards it and all I can hear is, "Who's this guy pole dancer coming in, lads?" And I was like, "Sorry, what?" And he goes, "Oh, sorry, mate, I think I know you." And I was like, "Oh, do you?" Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah, are you the guy bouncer from the George?" Which Aaron doesn't know, is a guy nightclub in Dublin. And so usually I get up on the bar, and like once I've kind of done one or two bits, they settle down. But I started doing a few bits and he's still shouting out, "Jazz, lads, he's a lovely little arse on him, hasn't he?"
Just with that, right, obviously now that doesn't happen all the time, but was there ever a kind of that inner dialogue when you're kind of going, "Oh man, I don't know, can I come back here tomorrow?" Or, "I don't know, can I go back to the next school tomorrow?" Like that, I suppose that is the challenge, kind of going into those environments. I don't mean youth outreach, I mean any school or people where maybe, like, I suppose it's not your comfort zone. Your gym might be your comfort zone or whatnot.
Yeah, so what I found is that when people are coming to your gym, they want to learn something off you, so you have something of value. But when I walk in there, they don't necessarily care like why you're there or what you're trying to do. But for me, and this is something we spoke about to other calisthenics clubs, and I've seen clubs, especially because our sport is so new, so I've seen clubs set up and be like, "Oh no, we're just going to get everyone to come," and I'm like, "But nobody knows what your sport is." So like, you need to go out and promote it. So going out into a school, I'm sure some people they wouldn't be comfortable with that, but for me, it's like, I always remember a basketball team coming to my school and I was absolutely amazed, and I went to see a basketball game the following week, all that kind of stuff, and like that's stuck with me, thinking like we could do the same. So if I go into a school, demonstrate what calisthenics is, the influence that basketball say had. Now I never played basketball, but just that idea of like them seeing it and getting a bit of inspiration by it and wanting to do that, it's worth getting called a gay pole dancer.
And just this was what I took from that even is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So I'm kind of working with a team now at the moment, and kind of female athletes, and they're lovely, they're great, but they're, I suppose, unwilling at the moment, or they're still learning to be kind of get uncomfortable in, I suppose, in general, and be comfortable in that area. And I kind of said this in podcast number 1 to my last guest, Dan. And remember when I started off in business, kind of making those cold calls, I hated it. I was unbelievably uncomfortable doing it. It was horrific. But I suppose it's something that's part of it. It's something that you just do. I suppose I've done it since, and it's led to great things. As a business owner, as an athlete, as, I suppose, a trainer, you know, who's going to maybe again a coach, how have you kind of embraced that idea of being uncomfortable, and how do you kind of share that with your athletes?
So I'll give you a funny one. So like, we're trying to organize a competition, and I was trying to get sponsorship for it. So as a way of trying to get sponsorship, I applied for the job with 3. And went into the job interview and just said, look, I'm not actually here for the job interview. I'm just here to try put in a sponsorship application. Yeah, you can imagine that probably just got thrown in the bin straight away. Like, but
did 3 ever come back to you?
No, they didn't. They said, yeah, thanks. Threw it straight over the shoulder in the bin. But I was only about, I suppose, naive, 23, 24, and I suppose, yeah, like there's probably, it's like you're saying about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. There's 2 ways you can look at it. Is like, sometimes people are afraid to contact people because they think, oh, what if they don't get back to me? What if they don't say no? And it's like, well, they're going to say no either way if you don't ask.
Yeah,
so
very true.
It's more about, as you say, I think it's really important that comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, we got a lot of stuff this year just by asking, constantly asking, and like you as an example, like you have your finger in every pie possible, like and I think you're just comfortable with rejection.
Yeah.
But in a good way though, because you have to put yourself out there to get, like, you might get 98 no's, but the one yes could be the turning point for anyone, And
do you know what, that's really gas, because I have a good friend, I'd know him, God, over 15 odd years at this stage, but I met him through GA, and we got he got onto me for a match. So, like, he was doing like a division, or kind of like a Cork squad, an under 15 Cork squad, and he got onto me. I was doing my local club, Bishopstown, and I was doing their under 16s, and he just rang me. He said, look, this is who I am. I'd love to play you in a match, because you're a year younger, you're a big enough team, it'd be a great test for us. I said, yeah, no bother. So we got chatting, and I kind of asked him how he gets in the squads, whatever else, and long story short, he got me involved, and we've been friends ever since. But I remember we were chatting, just chatting about opportunities, and chatting about kind of coaching opportunities that, I felt that I didn't get, that maybe I was kind of looked over or whatever. And we were chatting away, and he just says, your biggest problem is you kind of wait for people to come to you. He says, you're not going after the things aggressively. And he kind of gave me an example of someone who did it, and he kind of goes, well, what do you make of that? Like, he goes, he does it and you don't. And I kind of goes, yeah, look, you have a point. But I suppose I've kind of taken that forward now with even things like guests for the podcast coming up. I have a couple of former Irish internationals lined up, really big businessmen lined up, but all because I decided to go, look, fuck it. If they say no, they say no. And it was the same with a couple of sports teams I'm involved with. And I suppose being uncomfortable has served me quite well lately. The rejection is a pain in the hole, but as you said, it's like, no, grand, move on to the next person. And you're kind of building that kind of thick skin, you're building that brass neck. And I think that's important, especially in our game. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think as well, like most people, most people are happy to actually pass on some information or advice, like in terms of our sport, and I suppose like you're saying in business, like if someone's 10 years ahead of you, like they're usually happy to, like they like giving advice, they like talking about what they've done.
Yeah.
Most people like talking about their own experiences, so it works both ways, you know, like a couple of years down the line someone else might be starting and you're there then to pass on that advice. But like I wouldn't have that advice to pass on if someone didn't give me advice 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's just kind of one of those things, and most people are, instead of being afraid to ask, people are actually happy to be asked, you know.
Absolutely. And I was on LinkedIn, it was yesterday, day before, and Jamie had a post up about some really impressive results from the World Championships that you just kind of were at as a kind of your own organisation. Can you tell us a bit how you got on at the World Championships? What was the experience like? What were the results like? And because was any learnings that you took from yourself?
I thought you were talking about Jamie Queenie there as a quote. But yeah, not like we're only back a couple of days. The voice still hasn't 100% healed. It's the first time we've had an Irish world champion, Eric Cuneen from Cork. But like in terms of, say, we had 3 young athletes for the first time. They're the youngest ever athletes to compete in the competition. World Championship, only 14. One of the girls, Leia, is 14. She's also the first female from Ireland to compete. I mean, they're all things that you can't take away from those people. Rebecca from Cork is second in the world now for power in our sport, power category. And I suppose just in terms of the psychology stuff, like we ran a team building workshop before we went, and just tried to create a group atmosphere the whole time we were there. And I'm just saying this to you because you're involved in the course, but last year I went as an athlete. This time I went as I don't know what title they want to give me, but I went as support, I suppose. And the difference between last year this year was that 3 clubs went from Ireland. This year everyone came together as one. Brilliant. And I'm not saying that that's obviously not the reason people placed or anything like that, but in terms of just overall satisfaction and feeling like we achieved something together, it was huge.
And what was the feeling like, and even maybe explain the decision to me not to compete, and how did that feel when you're seeing the competition go and you kind of going, oh man, I wish it was out there? Or are you after finding something out that you get a really big kick out of kind of being that support? Obviously we kind of talked kind of off air that, you know, you were around them 24/7 for the bones of a week, like, psychologists with the boxing that Kevin would have told us inside college and stuff, but really hands-on experience that way. But did you miss the competing part?
Yes and no. I kind of decided like that was the last year. So last year I went and I was the first person from Ireland to compete in the World Championships. So World Cup in 2019, first one to do that. And then last year, first one in the World Championships. So I kind of feel like I've opened the door and now I want to let the others through.
Brilliant.
So like, and I remember talking to people before about that point when they get to like, and I'm not there yet, but like if you got to like 35 and you start getting young lads coming through your club, and if you just keep competing and you're halting their progress,
yeah,
and then 2-3 years down the line, you've no one coming through your club because you just keep beating them in the nationals, and then you're the one who goes to international events.
Yeah.
So I just didn't want to be that person, and then also the fact that there's 3 kids coming from the club at 14, I didn't want any of my attention to be taken away from them. I wanted all my efforts going into supporting them.
Brilliant.
Like they're 14, going to World Championships. I don't want to then be not able to support them because I'm off busy thinking of myself and doing my thing. And it's a different pressure. Like when you're going yourself, obviously you're only kind of thinking of yourself.
Yeah.
But when you go to the event, you nearly feel responsible for everyone, even though you're not. They're responsible for themselves, but you take on a lot more responsibility, I suppose.
Is there I suppose a chance then that you might take on maybe a lot more of a loss if you lost or didn't perform well. Is there a danger of that as well? That you kind of take a lot of that on your shoulders, maybe?
Yeah, well, like, so the kids themselves, I mean, there's an element of you obviously that feels responsible for them, and if they don't perform well, are they going to look at me as if like this is your fault? But while they're 14, they've 7 years training experience, so they're young in chronological age, but in training age, they're ahead of most people in Ireland. Like they're way ahead.
Yeah.
So they have the experience, just not the age, like, not the actual competition experience. And I wouldn't put anyone in a position that I didn't feel they weren't ready for.
Brilliant.
And so they made the choice. I wouldn't be putting anyone in that position that they're telling me they don't want to do it. Like there's a few that could have done it, and basically we said, I think you just need to go and see what it's like, get the experience of just being in and around it, and then in the next couple of years maybe you can go as an athlete.
Class.
So we work around those things to make sure that everything in terms of like box ticking, are they emotionally ready, are they physically ready? Physically is the easiest one. Like, but it's psychologically, are they ready, and emotionally, are they ready? Are they gonna have a good experience from this? And if that was no, which it kind of was for one or two, it was like, okay, you're just gonna go and just experience it. Whereas the others we felt were so.
And how is that funded then, Jamie? Because you're a new sport, are you under umbrella of Sports Ireland or anything yet, or how does that work?
No, it was all. We were very lucky in terms of our committee setting up a GoFundMe, and just very lucky that people in the club donated to that. Like that helped massively in comparison to last year when we didn't have that support, and you were kind of obviously it was coming out of your own pocket, which is fine. But this year, when you're thinking like, it's not just me. Say like the young lad the 3 kids have to bring their families, all that kind of dynamic. So they're not paying for one person; they're paying for 3. All them costs are adding up. So unfortunately, there's no Sport Ireland recognition yet. So it was all self-funded. Yeah.
And how, like, I suppose, what is the next step for you then? Because obviously you have the gym, Bar Monkeys, but you've also set up Irish Calisthenics Institute. There we go.
Oh, hey.
How does that tie in? What's the steps involved now in kind of getting your sport recognised at kind of maybe a national level?
So I suppose like some of that previous to COVID, we were told you needed to have. It's kind of like this is going to sound like a catch-22 scenario, because they've told us you need to have 10 clubs to be recognised as a sport. So there needs to be 10 clubs dotted around the country or whatever. But then I was developing coaching courses. Like, how do we develop clubs without having recognised coaching courses? So I've met with people in the IRFU, a few other sports, Athletics Ireland, and essentially they were kind of saying, look, if there's no one else, like, not being smart, but is there anyone in Sport Ireland you think that understands your sport better than you? And kind of just said, well, no, like at the time, like there isn't anyone in Sport Ireland probably even knows the name. So he said, well, why are you looking for their approval then? You know what works in your sport, just get courses up and running. So we've done that. But I suppose with COVID, I think we had 7 or 8 clubs, and that dropped to 4 because of COVID. And I suppose someone said to me with COVID is that it's not necessarily set people back 2 years, it's set them back 5, because it's the idea of trying to get back to where you were previous to COVID and then trying to catch back up.
Yeah. And even from just an employee thing, even with companies I'm dealing with now, and just conversations with business owners, they're finding it impossible to keep and get staff. It's just, they said since COVID, it's really, really hard out there. So I suppose, kind of going way off topic, but obviously COVID would have affected people massively. And just for yourself as an athlete, what kind of ambitions have you yourself? What things are you still looking to achieve yourself? Because obviously, there's a massive element of self-awareness that you have, because as you just said, you've got 14-year-olds coming through your gym. You don't want to be competing against them. So that is kind of a fine line to yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, no one needs to see me get beaten by a 14-year-old, mate.
Especially when it's taller than you.
So basically, they have set up a veterans category, which I found out is over 30s. So I could potentially enter that next year. So that could be the avenue I go down. But I don't feel I'd want to do that maybe until I feel like I know that they'd be okay.
Yeah.
But in a couple of years, at the minute, they're just building up their experience. Like, we've other guys there that are 18, 19 that just narrowly missed out. They could go in next year.
Yeah.
Just because there's 3 14-year-olds there this year, that's not a guarantee that they're going to be there every year for the next 10 years. So there's a wide variety of athletes that we have coming through. But obviously, selfishly, I do feel like I missed out a bit on the competition side, because that's kind of why you get into the sport. But at the same time, I am, I suppose, just as interested in developing them. And it's a different reward. I always said, it's easy for me to motivate me, but to see other people motivated because of the structure that we have or the environment we have, to me, that's a bigger challenge, and that was just as enjoyable in a different way.
And I suppose just bring you way forward down the line, you kind of walk into a pub when you're in your 40s or 50s, and across the bar is one of your past students. He's with his buddy. He kind of gives you a hello, and then your man goes, "Well, who's that?" And he's going to tell his buddy about you. I suppose, what would you hope that he'd say about his experience or interact with you, or even being a member of the club?
Hopefully nothing too negative anyway. I've actually said that to lads before when they started coaching with us, because a lot of people's, I suppose, our generation, most people's experiences with coaches were predominantly negative,
Yeah.
So if you saw them in the pub, you'd run the other side or call them a wanker.
I suffered from that, actually. I made that mistake as a young coach, to be fair, where every training session was like I was in Croke Park. It was all about winning this All Ireland when you're training an underage team. And, experience and hindsight are a great thing. But 100%. Sometimes we can lose track of why we're probably doing it.
Yeah, and so we very much so we'll speak to the parents, or we'll say, look, and I've always said, look, my goal, I've said where I've gotten to, and I'm like, if it was up to me, I'd want everyone training for this, but that's my goal. It's not necessarily the person you're working with. So for some kids, again, there's only 38, 39 gold medal Olympic athletes out of 8 billion people. So in general, most people don't want to be competitive. They're just doing it for recreation. It could be just for fun. Adults, I keep saying this to parents, is you go to the gym 3 days a week or whatever it is, if parents are involved in fitness, but you're not an athlete. So why are you forcing your kids to, why would your kid be any different? In general, 70, 80, 90%, whatever it is, of the population aren't athletes, or professional athletes. So we're not gearing people down that path unless they want to go down that way. And then all the support network we have is, right, how do we help you achieve that? But it's always revolved around what they want. So I heard this thing before, you'll like it. It's like the coach is a taxi driver, essentially. The athlete's the passenger. They're deciding where they want to go, and you're just navigating the journey. So
very true.
Yeah.
And I suppose, what are your plans for the gym, for the institution over the next maybe 5 years, that kind of period? What would you hope to see in terms of growth?
Irish takeover, mate.
Irish takeover. That's ambitious. That's ambitious.
Look, just if we get the sport recognised, that will be the dream. Get the sport recognised with Sport Ireland, get some national recognition, open up full-time facilities.
Class.
And, you know, in terms of where we are with the kids competing at the minute, great that they're building up that experience. But in a couple of years, it won't be just to be making up the numbers, you know, it'll be to do as well as they can, I suppose.
And I suppose just before we finish up there, Jamie, if there's any parents listening, I suppose the obvious thing, what would the health benefits be for a kid that walks into your gym? Maybe he's a little overweight, maybe she's a little overweight, maybe they're shy. Like, what are the benefits of, I suppose, coming in, trying out your sport for them?
Well, for me, it's the social inclusion. Again, not necessarily the physical benefits. It's so social inclusion, meeting role models, meeting peers that are going to give you a good pathway. So we would have young lads coming in potentially, you know, off the street, if you like, and it's just showing them an alternative pathway. It's like, okay, you're doing X, Y, Z out here, but if you come in here, you could be doing this. So for me, it's a lot around exposing them to a new community, meeting potential role models, and then meeting other kids. And physical benefits will come after that. Like, you can get physical benefits from any sport. So I just think you need to find a community and an environment that helps you with that. Because if you're in something long enough, all that stuff will follow anyway.
Unreal. Jamie, we've just come to the end, man. Really insightful 40 minutes with you. I suppose for anyone listening, I'll put up Jamie's contact details on links and whatnot. I'll share videos of what calisthenics is on LinkedIn again. I saw one video one day and it was just bananas, absolutely bananas. But Jamie, thanks so much for your time, man. Some absolutely fantastic insights. I think the kids are very lucky to be part of your gym. It's very obvious that it's kind of a person-centered approach rather than results-driven, you know, rather than collecting a few quid. It's very obvious just from talking to you that you wanted to help kids is definitely a passion. It's definitely something that you're obviously putting a lot of effort into. So I just want to say thanks for sharing your story, and we will definitely have you on again.
Thanks a lot, mate. And good luck with the thesis, yeah?
Come here. Fingers crossed. Cheers,
right,
buddy.
Thanks, man.